Tell me, what does this photo of this Airbnb property and this photo of Cardi B have in common? They're both fake as f. I got catfished, guys. Let me show you. This place, the photos looked amazing, but look at this. This is not an amazing property. There's not even glass in the store. This property, somebody busted in one time or something, and that's their permanent fix. A drywall door. Can you believe that? Now, this place isn't that terrible overall. Check this out. Let me turn around. But they misrepresented this place bad. I feel like I got because first of all, when I booked, it was on a completely different side of town. Then they send me a message going, hey, it's actually at this address. I hope that's fine. Then they send me another message with photos of a different listing. And they say, with the photos included, is everything fine? And I responded going, hey, actually, I'd prefer the room I booked. Thank you. They then tried to cancel. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go find out what's up. So I said, you know what? I'm not gonna cancel. I don't feel like dealing with Airbnb support. I decided to come here and figure out what their gambit was. So this property, a decent house at a decent price, has tried to basically sell what is more of a run-down home in a state of disrepair as something that's like peak of quality. And I realized, you know, this isn't the worst I've seen. I've actually seen worse online before. And it got me thinking, how many hosts are catfishing their guests? And how many hosts are playing by the rules and suffering from it? So I decided I'm going to cheat. I'm gonna teach you how to Photoshop your listing to look better, because apparently everybody else is doing it. Some of the things I can teach you are a little bit unethical because I'm great at Photoshop. So let me know in the comments which ones you think are going too far. Take the ones that you can use, throw away the ones that you think are bad. But let's begin. All right, YouTube world, I've collected a series of photos that I'm going to show you some really crazy cool tricks. Some are easy, some take a few steps, but follow along. Some of these you should do on almost all of your photos because it's really just standard best practices for processing. This photo here we're not going to do on Photoshop, we're actually going to do in Lightroom because we are going to rebalance the color. First, this photo is not a good photo for Airbnb. You shouldn't be using vertical photos, and this really doesn't show the kitchen space very well. It's also tilted. Lightroom is great because you can actually rotate an image and get it to be vertical. You can also warp it a little bit too if you feel like it's out of alignment. So on a regular photo, you can do this, and there's also an option for auto crop. So there we go. So what I just did is I rotated it a little bit and maybe made it look a little bit more realistic, but now the color is still bad. And the reason why this is important is because when you've got blue and yellow lights together, you end up getting this weird mixture of tone. And kitchens, we want them to look sanitary, so we really want to pull the whites as much as we can. So the trick for this is just to go to the yellows. I can increase the luminance of the yellows, see that, pull it up, but I can also desaturate them or saturate them. So I can bring those yellows down to take away their color and bring the lightness up. And all of a sudden, the kitchen looks a lot more white. I can do the same thing with the blues that are here. I can play with the saturation, make sure this is the correct one. This one seems about right. I can pull the saturation down and the luminance up, and I can balance that out here too. Of course, the window's blowing out, so you can play with this and actually mask out the window so the window doesn't get too bright. We're trying to affect the interior of the space. I'm gonna check the other blue and see if the other blue has any effect. Blue has a lot of effect. So we're gonna desaturate this blue. We're gonna increase the light here. And if I wanted to, I could take this original image, pull the original window if there was like a tree in it or whatever. But in this case now, I've nailed the blue and the yellow, and I can actually make the photo more balanced in color. See, I can make the left side dark. Kind of weird, isn't it? I can bring that light back in. I can also then take this blue one, I can make the window dark and that side of the kitchen dark, or I can bring that light back in. So what I would like to do is balance it, which I've pretty much done now, and then I can go in and do my regular editing, bring the shadows up like that, but also bring the contrast up for a kitchen because I want to actually pull more of the blacks. And so now this is the kitchen, more done than before, and this is the kitchen before, right? We've got a lot of yellow, a lot of blue, a lot of bad tone, but then now this kitchen looks a lot more modern, a lot more clean, a lot more well lit, and that is number one. This is something you should do with every photo. Balance the color, balance the tone. That is not cheating. Everybody should do that. Now let's get to the stuff that could be cheating. This is a cheap property. And the way that this cheap property looks good is on the left side, you see mirrors and artwork. And on the right side, you see artwork and the couch. This is good composition. I just want to stop and show you. This property is like $1,000 a month for rent. And it's like a C-class property. It's got roaches and stuff like that too. It's not a good property at all, but we're able to represent it as a good photo by holding the camera at the right height, shooting it across the room, and making sure that the composition is good. And what I want to do is show you guys how to maybe fix your composition if you've got a bad composition problem, like if you've got a photo that's just got a bunch of dead space in it that shouldn't be there. So let me see if I can find one. I've got a couple examples. Let's pull this one. So this room, for example, has just got a lot of dead space on the right side. Obviously there's no artwork, there's really no investment into this, so it's already got a problem. The ceiling's plain, the wall's plain, but we just hit the crop, C for crop. I'm gonna go in like this, and I'm gonna pull a section, and I'm going to take the ratio from 16:9 to whatever ratio I want. And so let me flip this, it's a 4:5 now, and I am going to pick what I think to be valid for this shot. So now, this is the current ratio, 4:5, cropping out a lot of the right wall and some of the ceiling and just that junk on the left side. If I hit undo, you can see that there's just a bunch of extra that doesn't belong. It doesn't really sell the space. Go back to it, and that crops out a lot of the unnecessary stuff. I could continue to crop a little bit of the ceiling out if I wanted to, but at this point, I think all this place really needs is like a throw blanket and some artwork on the back, and otherwise it's pretty clean. We could do this again with another bedroom. Check this one out. This one, the wall on the right and the ceiling, both are really unnecessary. This is also at a bad angle. I can't really fix that, but we're just gonna run with this. I'm gonna hit crop again, and I'm going to pick a spot of cropping that I think is valid. So something like this now takes, this is a little overcropped. Let me back out, see if I can do that. So we're going to go back to a different resolution. We'll do 16:9. And the goal is to take away some of the dead right side, but also still show the foot of the bed a little bit so it looks correct. Now, if this photo was more properly photographed, we'd be a little bit closer to the bed shooting straight at the back wall. And this photo would then look better like this, but this is still a better crop than all of this extra room over here. Because the more you underutilize an Airbnb, the more it looks plain. So that's another thing that you guys can do really fast. Balance the colors and crop. But let's get into some cooler tricks. Let me cut these away. Because you guys want to know what people are actually doing, right? You want to know what people are doing. So, okay, here's one that I had to fix for one of my properties. When I took this photo, it has all of this orange, and this is the natural light for the photo. But if you notice now, this bottom section here, the rug is yucky. This white bench looks yellow. Everything just looks a little off. So what did I do? I photoshopped an area of it to get this done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight the area that I want to affect, and that's it. I'm gonna pull that. So I'm using the quick selection brush. I'm gonna select every area of this photo that could be white. And this took a little time initially, so hopefully I can do this a little bit faster. Now I'm gonna take a actual line shape, and I'm gonna cut away stuff like this. This is the part where it takes a little bit of practice to do Photoshop, my friends. But I can cut away the stuff that I want to not mess with because I really want to work with just the rug and the bench. And I think the blacks should be fine. We can actually keep the blacks in the shot because blacks don't really have a color. But for the sake of maybe not making this look weird, I'm gonna cut this part out like that. Now we've got the rug, we've got this white area here, and I can then either like copy this section of the photo or I can just apply a mask. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a new layer via copy. I don't know what I wanna do with this thing. So the way that I did this before is I used color balance, and I went and I started to play with the colors. Now I also like desaturated the whole thing. So you may not actually be able to see this, but what I'll do is I will go to the old photo. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the old photo, and you notice how the color balance here for magenta, that's all I really pulled, right? So let me go in and let me do this. I'm gonna highlight this section of image via copy. Now, I'm gonna take this adjustment layer, I'm gonna hit the option button so it only affects that section that I copied. Also, if you wanna learn how to use this stuff more appropriately, Piximperfect has a killer YouTube channel. But now I can pull a little bit blue. I can pull a little bit blue here, and I can start to pull away all the orange tone. And I wanna do this with more so the highlights and the midtones because that's where most of the light has been casted. I might play with it a little bit in the shadows as well, but now I also can go and I can use the hue and saturation filter. Also hit option again to make sure that it only applies to that one layer. And I can go desaturate, and I can bring the lightness up in that too if I wanted to. So when you do this, you want to select very carefully the sections you want to affect. I'm really just doing that fast to show you that you can take the orange, make the orange go away. You can even brighten up sections of your listing if you wanted to. What I could actually do is hit on option and maybe affect the brightness of all of it, bring the saturation back. But I can affect the brightness of all of the listing if I wanted to, and then I can go in, hit Command I to take it away, and then I can use a brush and start to brush in saturated and brighter. I can do it like that too. So there's other options. But this took a little time and intentionality where I kind of went in and drew exactly where I wanted to affect the space, picked exactly the part of the photo that I wanted, left all the orange untouched, and I was able to get that result by pulling blues up and kind of washing away the orange and then desaturating the final product to get that really pearly white look. This is the type of Photoshop that a lot of people need to do with their property when their properties are more expensive. I had to do this because when I listed this property, I got no bookings for 4 days, none. I couldn't understand why, but that's when it hit me that my dingy yellow tone on this photo made the place look less luxury. So after making this change, this property's been like 90% booked after this one change. It's kind of wild, isn't it? This next one is really fun. We're gonna change the sky. And this is the one that people might think is kind of shady. The first thing we're gonna do is draw a box to cut out the top so that way it doesn't affect the bottom. And yes, this is something people do in Miami all the time. The reason why is because you can't choose your sky when you get your photos when your listing's new. This is overcast, but Miami's got blue skies all the time, right? I didn't pick a perfect blue sky, so don't make fun of me. So I'm gonna hold shift where this box is. I'm gonna bring in the rest of the sky that's down here, but then I'm gonna hit option and I'm going to cut out a lot of what I think should get cut out of the bottom here. I'm gonna cut out this section too. I'll even cut out the roof. Maybe don't need to because the roof is dark, and I'll explain why in a second. But now that the roof is cut out, we've got this top part. I'm gonna hit new layer via cut. And see how it only says copy? I'm gonna have to go to this layer, double click on the right side, and hit rasterize. Now, if I double click here, I can new layer via cut. Now, the sky is gone, and this back part is here. We're not gonna just remove the sky though. We're gonna go double tap on the right here, and there's gonna be this bar, and we're gonna bring it down. Start to remove the brightest parts of the sky. Now this can be a little aggressive, so what we're gonna do is now we're gonna option and hold it, and we can spread these two white bubbles here. So we can spread it and start to kind of feather that brightness. Now if you notice, the back has a palm tree in it, and so we might actually just bring that over here and schedule this like that. And now we can put some clouds in the shot if we want to, more or less clouds. But now already we have a different version of the sky. Another thing we can do though, to make sure that this photo looks more appropriate, because this photo was taken in an overcast environment, it doesn't look off right now, but it doesn't actually look perfect. So we can go and pick a color balancer. Again, hold option and point down at the part of the photo that we want to affect, which is just the part with the turtle. And we can then add some in the midtones, add some yellow, and maybe add a little bit of red. And then do the same thing for highlights. Add just a touch of yellow and a touch of red. And now it looks more daytime. So if we were gonna go back, let me see if I can get this photo again so you guys can see the original. Pop this over the top. The original photo has this blue tone, as you can see, and the sky is overcast. But now that we made this effect, the sky is blue with clouds, and the concrete and turtle look more like there was direct sunlight, making this photo look real. This takes a little time to learn, right? But in this case, the main thing we wanted to do was cut out the sky. We can ignore anything dark, so the trees and the leaves are mostly fine, but we want to cut out that section of sky. Then we're going to basically delete from the brightest in to remove the brightness of the sky when it's blown out or overcast and reveal an image behind it. You can have a golden hour here, stuff like that, but just make sure that if you're using a wide camera for this shot, you also need to find a sky that was taken with a wide camera. So what you can do is if you're taking iPhone photos, and this was an iPhone photo, just take the same iPhone, point in roughly the same direction as the last shot on a better day, take that photo and capture all that sky. Then you could put that photo in the background and mash them together. As long as you're using the same camera, you should get the right results. Isn't that pretty cool? Now this one is one, if you wanted to change a listing materially, maybe because you're a co-host and you want to convince a homeowner to change their listing. This listing is a decent listing, but as you can see, the ceiling's white. And this is a really expensive property in an area that has other really expensive properties. And all of these properties have theater cinemas like this, but they could be better. This one, in order to improve it, to convince the owner to make a key change, what we did is we highlight the ceiling like this. I can hit Option and unhighlight the section of the light. Then we're going to make a new layer above it. We will then fill this area with a color. We're going to pick the blue from the wall, add that color, and then we're going to change the color balance, the blend mode, to hard light. Now, we hit deselect. Now the ceiling looks blue. What we could do is we literally could take this photo and post this photo into the listing if we planned on painting the ceiling. Let's say that you had a wall that you wanted to change. We can go back to another one and I'll show you soon. Or you had a ceiling that you wanted to change. And you could visualize the change in Photoshop, but you had bookings coming up. Like the next 10 days were booked. And then you blocked the next 2 days after those bookings to do the paint. But you wanted everybody to know that this was going to be painted. Or even more dramatically, let's say your place was booked for the next 2 months and you wanted to have 2 months of marketing where the listing looked better. So after the 2 month of bookings, you block the next 4 days for renovations. You could then do this with photos and show our ceiling is going to be blue. Everybody for the next 2 months will see your better version of your property. Because as long as you paint when the next guest moves out in 2 months, this is not a lie, is it? And we can do the same thing with other rooms. Like for example, this one. If we wanted people to maybe believe that the wall was different color, we could highlight this area of wall. We could actually highlight the whole thing. Hit Option and unhighlight all these curtains, for example. Make sure the bed and the headboard are not highlighted either. And that means the runner down below, and this runner down here. And now we've got mostly the part that we want to affect. So again, we make a new layer. We then go to Fill and we pick a color. And in this case, we might go with the pink color, something like that. But maybe I want a more bright version. So we're gonna go with that, okay? Go with this color pink, blend mode. It might be hard light. It might be something else. We have to play with this. So we've got lighter colors, screening modes, like all sorts of stuff here. But in this case, I think soft light might be best. So now this place is pink. We can then go in on this layer and cut out anything that we screwed up, like this window frame here. I can just go in and start to cut the layer away and reveal the window. So if we wanted to literally paint this room pink at one point and we just wanted to advertise that it was pink because, let's just be honest, before and after. Before, after. This room probably will look better pink. We could do that. I could also go into Amazon and to get a photo of a plant that was gonna go in there, take the photo and plant the photo in. Check this out. You can also use Wayfair for this because Wayfair has really good photos of their products. But let's say we want to use something like this one. This one might be a little bit tricky just because it's got so many leaves, but we can try. Actually, let me give you a guaranteed result instead of a tricky result. Let's go use this one. Wait for it to fully load on screen. I'm going to hit Command-Shift-4 and just drag a box just to save the file like that. I'm gonna put in my previews and name it Planty, like that new movie that just came out, if you know what I'm talking about. It's not that new, but it's got Jennifer Lopez in it, and she names a Martian plant Planty.
Best I got is plenty.
Noted.
So next, go back to Photoshop, take the image we just stole from Amazon, drop it in. the same thing that I taught you guys to do before, we're gonna do a similar version of that. I'm going to highlight this planter because I don't want it to get taken up by my next effect. So I'm just gonna actually try to have this planter be a separate item, right? So I'm gonna go new layer via copy, then double tap on the right of this other image, the one that's completely all white, and just drop the white background, right? Hit Option and blend the bottom out and try to find the right balance. That seems good enough. And now that is close enough to being correct, I can go back, click on both, and then double click on the right side, scroll down, and then you hit Merge Layers. So now this image is a plant. And so I could have it in the corner here if I want to, right? I could also have a bench or a chair if I wanted to. Now, because this is so well exposed, the lighting, people might think it looks fake. Obviously, it could. We could also put it in the back and just decide to make it part of the room where maybe people can't see the planter. And the way we do that is we just zoom in here, find out where the bed is, and completely cut, just like that, hit delete. And now it looks like there's a plant by the bed. Ta-da! So if you wanted to make key upgrades to the room, but didn't have access to the room yet, you could Photoshop a different color of paint on the wall. You could Photoshop plants in. We could add a bench at the bottom. Anything that makes the room look better. As long as you make good on those things, you can make good on those things. And the guests won't be any the wiser. Now, this unit, what they did is they essentially did kind of what I did with this orange room, except the orange paint on the wall, the one that I'm staying in, is like a really muted and washed out color. So like if I was gonna give you an example, the color probably was like, kind of more like that. So the wall color actually looks like this in my room, and this is how they presented it. And sure, they picked the wrong paint color. It was close enough to a nice orange that they basically took the photo and just warped the colors to be more welcoming. Like this photo is more vibrant, it's more welcoming, it's more fun. And a paint color like this is just a little bit more dreary. And so I really don't blame them. It's like kind of like that. That's kind of dreary. And I could go like, and make that nice and orange if I wanted to. Yay, Photoshop. You can even do it for videos. If we went to Miami, which I'm gonna try to do right now, we might actually see examples of people doing some crazy Photoshop in Miami. Some of these things are mostly in camera, but are still affected by the end. So for example, this shot here, if we can get to it, this shot here had to be taken at a certain time of the day. And that's how they get the pinks and the blues. But in order to affect this photo, this area would be super dark. So what they did is they took multiple photos, one that's more overexposed and one that was exposed for the sky, and they matched them together. That's called an HDR photo. And that's how you can get this blend of good saturation and color and exposure at the top and good saturation, color, exposure at the bottom. Like outside, inside photos, this is very commonly done. Kind of like this photo right here, you can see inside is so very well lit, but outside isn't completely blown out. This part is, but the rest is still balanced. So a lot of times when we take photos of the outside, they're completely blown out, and the only way to pull that off is by taking two photos and mashing them together. For this photo, there was a lot of color affecting because the way that they had to take this photo again is they had to blend for the night sky, but they also had to blend for the fireplace. So they took two separate photos, they mashed them together and then color graded the thing so that way you had good quality color all over the photo. This is really hard to take, and your eye can do this in real life. Like you could be standing there seeing the fire and seeing the sky, but cameras actually can't do that. So this is all Photoshop to make sure that all these colors pop corner to corner. Obviously, they put text over the top of this photo, right? They want you to believe that this place is famous as seen on Market Watch and CBS, Top Spot. Doesn't exist. You can see that they completely photoshopped in this hot tub. You can actually tell because the lighting environment is completely different. You can see the shadow here on the bottom of this pole, the shadow coming in this way, you can tell that there was actually a harsh light that went this way. You can tell that these floaties actually did not exist in the pool because you would see a shadow in the pool right there. You can see that these things over here are photoshopped in because the shadows don't match over here. Like with these poles here, there'd be shadows. You can see that this lighting environment for this hot tub, this was actually taken in a darker environment. You can also see that these surfboards have been photoshopped in because again, the shadow would exist. So what this person did, also this Netflix has been added in there because you couldn't light this environment this way and be able to see Netflix. The TV's just not bright enough. So if we go and click through now, you'll see that they placed everything that they could to make the hero photo look good, but these things actually don't exist in their photos. So here, the hot tub is actually in a different area. Check that out. And you can see the Netflix place is over there, right? See, there's that sign. Let's go back. There's a sign at the far end. I want you to see that. So this sign here and this hot tub aren't nearby each other. You flip over here, the hot tub is on a completely different side of the space than where the sign and the TV. This is actually a projector, see that? So where it said Netflix, that was a projector. And we all know projectors are not bright enough to show you the Netflix on there. And then see the surfboard things that's over there in the corner? They wanted you to see that, but they wanted you to see it in very clear lighting. So they moved it into the foreground next to the pool. And also they have a floaty, see that one right there? But it's not the same floaties. They decided to take some of their favorite floaties that they could get and line them up exactly in the pool where they wanted them. Because otherwise they'd have to try to push those floaties around, and in the wrong wind environment, you couldn't get the floaties to sit right there in the pool. So this is massively photoshopped, and this is what you could call product placement. They decided they wanted to place as many of their amenities into their hero photo as possible, so that first photo placed their little fireplace and the floaties and the surfboards and the hot tub. But this is a total sham of a first photo. But again, what they're trying to do is make good on this eventually. When you arrive to this place, and when you look at the rest of the photos too, you start to understand where everything is, and in a way, your mind has to compromise. Of course, that very first photo isn't how the space is gonna be. Of course not. But now that you've actually seen the whole place, you may decide, you know what? This place is pretty cool. Even though they lied to me on photo number 1, I'll still take the deal. So my friends, if you think that any of this is shady, if you think that this is catfishing, if you think this is bad, let us know in the comments. And maybe let Airbnb know, because a lot of people are doing this, especially in places like Miami. But if your photos are ugly, like I can find you some listings here that just are not pretty. If your photos are ugly like this one, and you want to fix that, you can do it in Photoshop, but you can also do it by taking the right types of photos. And if you find that you don't know that this photo here, if you can't recognize that this photo is a terrible photo and why, then watch this video next. These are the 10 mistakes you're making with your photos. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through to the end. You're my favorite people. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.